So, Bill, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the Greco-Turkish War,
Okay.
which is also known as Kurtuluş Savaşı in Turkey.
Yes.
So, you seem to know a lot about it, so I'd like to hear what you have to say,
Okay.
starting with how the Greek army ended up in Smyrna.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, after World War I ended, the Greeks were promised concessions for their participation in World War I at the expense of the Ottoman Empire.
So the British and the French promised them.
With mostly the British.
Mostly.
The ones who were supposed to have occupied Smyrna were actually the Italians. And they were kind of side railed to their dismay. They weren't happy. They were the ones who were promised Smyrna originally. But because the Prime Minister Eleftherios Venizelos was such a charismatic politician, great speaker, he was able to convince the British to occupy the former Ottoman lands because the British army at that point was really tired, and they would have needed about 1 million men to occupy the Ottoman or the former Ottoman Empire. So the Greeks, having historical claims to the region, dating back to Alexander the Great, jumped at the opportunity to implement what was then known as the Great Idea. So Prime Minister Eleftherios Venizelos offered his services, and the British agreed to allow the Greeks to land an expeditionary force or an occupying force in Smyrna under the pretext to protect the Greek Christian population and to police the zone. And then after 5 years, there would be plebiscite that they could annex it to Greece. So the army landed on May 15th of 1919, and which caused a nationalist fervor that the Turks had never seen. And then on May 19th of 1919, Pasha Mustafa Kemal landed on the shores of Samsun, and thus began the nationalist movement to create the country of Turkey. So the Greeks were occupying Smyrna beginning in 1919. And then in 1920, because there were bands of irregular Chets that were fighting back and they were harassing the Greek troops, the Greek army decided to fan out in 1920, which was called the 1920 Summer Offensive. They reached as far as Bursa, Ayadin, Philadelphia. And so thus their zone was extended beyond the Milne line, named after General Milne. As the occupation progressed, the nationalist movement got stronger and stronger and stronger. And the Greeks found themselves in a position where they had to put more and more resources into the occupation and into the destruction of the nationalist movement. So
what is going on in mainland Greece at this time? Because
in mainland Greece, there was elections that were held in November of 1920, where the Prime Minister lost.
Venizelos lost.
Yes. And I believe the same year, I don't remember if it's before or after, Prince Alexander, who was the king at the time, who was pro-Entente, who was participating in this venture, was bitten by a monkey and resulting in sepsis, and he died.
So there was actually a huge power struggle going on at the top level in Greece.
Well, not at that time, because Greece was under one government, which was Venizelos. Mm-hmm. What had happened was, because the prince or the king died, the prince died, and Venizelos lost the elections because the Greek